Hi to us, and finally got around to making the video that I've been promising on how to do maybe slightly better rolls, certainly precise rolls. They do sometimes cause a few problems, and if you're having problems, say you're doing a roll, then say doing the 2 consecutive rolls in accordance with the BMFAB test is going to be something that you may not feel very comfortable with doing to start with. So what I want to do is to explain some of the reasons why we get into a little bit of difficulty and what we can do to overcome them. So using my little trusty stick plane, which rolls very, very nicely, of course, let's see what happens. Typical scenario of a roll going wrong. The roll starts and it starts to go pretty well. As the aircraft starts to become inverted, if the CofG in particular is wrong, then the aircraft will pitch down towards the ground. So it's descending now towards the ground. As it makes the last quarter of the roll, last half of the roll, sorry, quite often that pitch down towards the ground can increase as well. And so we end up with the nose pointing down towards the ground. So of course you then pull the nose up. So we end up with, in effect, what looks like a sort of an underneath reverse barrel roll. And that means if you're doing the 2 consecutive rolls, the second roll is starting from the wrong pitch attitude angle and the wrong yaw place. So instead of doing 1, 2, we've gone 1, and then the second one becomes difficult. So why are we getting into difficulty, and what can we do to overcome it? Let's have a look to start with at purely the aircraft inverted. If the aircraft is rolled inverted and it pitches towards the ground, in fact towards the canopy, then the CofG is too far forward. If you roll the aircraft inverted and it starts pushing towards the belly or up to the sky, the CofG will be too far aft. Now, most kit manufacturers will steer well away from the CofG being too far aft, so they have it too far forward. So that means that the nose is going to drop. So we need to make sure with the models before we start doing the rolls that the CofG is in the correct position. I'm going to show you that in the simulator in a little while's time. Okay, the other thing which occurs is when the aircraft is on its side, in effect in the knife edge position. Obviously, when it's on its side, we've only got the fuselage producing lift, the fuselage and the rudder. 2 things occur here. One is the aircraft is going to sort of descend that way unless we give the fuselage a bit more lift by angling it more towards the sky. And the second thing is the centre of pressure tends to move slightly aft due to the configuration of the rudder, which is producing lift at this stage. So the centre of pressure moves aft, and so that in effect puts the aircraft a twisting moment around the CofG as well. So that's not going to help matters, but it would be both the same. But the other thing which is going to affect the model is adverse yaw, and if you haven't seen my video on adverse yaw, I'll put a link in the description, which basically says that as we make a roll, say to the left, the nose wants to go to the right. If we roll to the right, the nose wants to go to the left. Let's have a look at how adverse yaw is going to affect us in the roll. Well, when we do the first half of the roll and we roll into the left, the nose is going to go to the right. So in fact, it's actually going to help us because it's going to help keep the nose above the horizon. As we've come from inverted and we roll back again, we're rolling to the left, so the nose wants to go to the right. So now the adverse yaw is working against us. So it starts working for us and then it works against us. And so that means, let's have a look at the roll again. We start the roll, the adverse yaw helps. We get the aircraft inverted. If the CofG is too far forward, the nose goes down. As we continue the roll, the adverse yaw tends to make the nose go down even further, and then we pull out. How do we overcome the adverse yaw? Well, the easiest way is to use a little bit of aileron differential. And you'll see some models of mine in a picture later. All 3 of the models that you're going to see have got 1 degree extra aileron differential. So in other words, every single model has the aileron on the going up 1 degree more than the aileron goes down. So aileron differential is going to hopefully help with the smoothing out of this yaw imbalance. But the biggest thing which is going to make an effect is going to be the CFG of the aircraft. And the best way to show you how that occurs is to go onto the simulator, and we can have a little model and play around with the CFG and see how that affects the rolls. So onto the simulator. Okay, so here we are on the simulator, and just to show the setup, the aircraft has normal ailerons, but I've taken the elevator and the rudder deflections right down, and you've got the slightly enlarged control box here, so you should be able to see the movement on the controls hopefully. And we'll just have a look at the plane setup, and at the moment the CFG adjustment there is 0, so as per the manufacturer as it were, and the CFG is shown by these red icons here, and it's got forward and back, up and down, left and right CFG, but everything's set up essentially at the moment. And we'll see when we do the test that that CFG is too far forward now. So for proper flying, too far forward. But as per the manufacturer, when we come to take off, we'll need quite a lot of up elevator to actually get the model in the air to start with. And the best way to do a CFG check is to put the aircraft in a 45-degree climb at full power, roll the aircraft inverted, and just watch what it does. So we'll come around there, put the aircraft now up to the 45-degree climb. There it goes up, roll the aircraft inverted, and immediately you can see it's starting to arc back round. So the CFG is too far forward. If when you put the aircraft in a 45-degree climb there, it starts pushing towards the belly, the CFG will be too far aft, but this one's too far forward. That's going to have two effects. First effect, of course, is when the aircraft is inverted, it's actually going to take quite a lot of down elevator to hold it inverted, and you can see on the control box I've got lots of down elevator there. If I let go and you can watch it 3, 2, 1 now, immediately the aircraft starts to come down towards the ground. It also means, of course, that as the aircraft's in knife edge, it's going to need much more rudder to hold the aircraft at the desired angle. So more down elevator and more rudder, because the CFG is just too far forward. When we come then to do the roll, it's going to be complicated. So as we do the roll, we opposite rudder plenty, down elevator, same rudder plenty, back to neutral with nothing, opposite rudder, down elevator, same rudder, neutral, opposite, down elevator, same rudder, neutral. It is flyable, but it's quite difficult to do that. So what we'll do is we'll bring the aircraft back down to the ground and we'll move the CFG. Now this particular aircraft I've used on lots of occasions to say demonstrate the FAIP schedules, minus 2.5. It's actually, that's in the position which I want it, which is a neutral position. Ask me to save it, we'll say yes. But here's some loops because I need to just adjust the trim on the aircraft to put it back in about the right place. And we'll do the same thing to check the CFG, and then we will have a look at the rolls. So when we come to take off, almost no elevator and the aircraft is taking off. And that looks pretty good as far as the trim is concerned. So let's have a look at that CFG position test in the climb. And what we're looking at is hopefully as we roll the aircraft inverted, it won't do that horrible arc back down towards the ground. So up 45 degrees, roll the aircraft inverted, and it just keeps going up. Stays exactly the same. So the CFG is in a neutral position. That's going to mean we're going to need less, or actually no, down elevator, and the aircraft's inverted, and it means we're going to need less rudder when the aircraft's on its side. So let's just have a look at the inverted. So there it is, and that's hands off the roll, but you can see there's no diving, and now with the rudder, I can fly it at the same speed, it needs much less rudder as well. So let's have a look at the rolls now. So I'm not going to use any elevator at all. I'm probably just going to use a tiny bit of rudder each time the aircraft is on its side. And we'll see how it flies the rolls. So, roll, rudder, 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 rudder. So I'm not actually using any elevator at all, and you can see it will keep doing that pretty much all day. So having the CofG set up correctly is going to make the rolls much easier. If we look at hesitation rolls, the faster we do them, the more complicated they are. So that's one way of doing a hesitation roll. The other way is to roll slowly, pause, roll slowly, pause, roll slowly, pause, roll slowly, pause. And that makes the hesitation rolls much smoother, and it's doing it because it's more in control anyway. But of course, the slower you roll, the less adverse yaw you get. But most of that's taken out by aileron differential anyway. We'll have a look at that on my models in a minute. So once again, nice gentle rolls, just using the rudder, tiny little bit of elevator every now and then, not very much. So there we go. So we'll put that on the ground, and we'll just have a look at some of my precision aerobatic models, which are disappeared for a second. So there we go. So here's 3 precision aerobatic models. So the Citroen actually has the centre of gravity exactly where it says it on the instructions. So it calls for 87 to 92 millimetres, and I've got mine at 90 millimetres. That's after the leading edge. The Ultimate, it says it should be 110 millimetres after the leading edge, the CofG, and I fly mine at 130 millimetres aft. So 20 millimetres further aft than the recommended. And on the miss wind at the back there, for precision aerobatics, it says 100 millimetres after the leading edge, the CofG, and I fly mine at 135. So 35 millimetres further back, just over an inch further back than the instructions. But that gives me a nice smooth flight. In fact, when I do the 45 degree up line with a half roll, it will gently just start coming back towards the earth. So very, very slightly forward CofG. But there we go. CofG is pretty important, and it's going to affect both the elevator we need and also the rudder we need in those rolls. So there you go. Hopefully that's going to help you make rolls much more like the stick plane can do rolls, where we end up doing nice consecutive rolls on the same plane. Hopefully it helps, and if it does, hopefully you'll like the video, and look forward to the next one. And I'll do the next video on how to make round loops, because people talk about, oh, you must fly a round loop, particularly if you're flying precision aerobatics, but it doesn't actually give you much advice on how to do that. So that'll be the next video coming up.